You know that feeling of being alone? You know, like you're the only one. I think oftentimes we can feel that way in this life, that we're the only ones who are experiencing what we're experiencing. Being alone in that place and in that state it's never really a good thing. You feel helpless, you feel hopeless, you feel like people don't or won't understand what you're going through. I think oftentimes we can feel alone in our temptation. When we're tempted to do things that we know go against the kingdom of God. When we're tempted to do things that we know may even hurt us or others. And one of the reasons I think we feel so alone in temptation is because we like the temptation. If we didn't like it, it wouldn't tempt us, right? Like, I'm just myself personally not tempted to do heroin. It's not a temptation for me, but for other people it is a real temptation. But for me, it's not something that I would say that I like. But being alone in temptation, it can feel like the world's eyes are on you and judging you. But there's good news. You see, in Corinthians, we read that God will give you a way out of your temptation. We read that God will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are capable of resisting. Now, remember, Paul also writes that you have not yet resisted sin to the shedding of blood. In other words, you can go a lot further than you typically do before you give in. But it says that God will always give you a way out of your temptation. And I was reading that today, and it just reminded me of a story of a friend of mine. This friend of mine was a big-time partier in high school. Now, he wanted to follow Jesus. He had this desire to follow Jesus, but he also had this desire to fit in with the world. Well, my buddy shares this story about how he was at a party one night, and he ended up going home with a girl. And, you know, part of his flesh was saying, yes, this is great. And the other part of his flesh was saying, no, don't do this. And he talks about he was sitting in this girl's apartment with her, and they're making out, and she gets up and says she's going to go put on something more comfortable and leaves the room. And at this moment, my friend has this encounter with God, and God basically said, look, if you don't get up and leave right now, you're going to wake up in the morning in this apartment with this girl, and you will regret it for the rest of your life. And so my friend gets up and he sprints out of the apartment. No warning, no word, didn't say goodbye, just got up and ran out. And when he tells his story, people ask him, well, how long did you run? And he says, I ran until the desire to go back went away. And he said, it was a few miles. But he just got up and ran. God gave him a way out of that temptation. And for him, that way out was his 2 feet. And he got up and he ran. You see, God understands your temptation. You are not alone in temptation. The writer of Hebrews tells us that we don't serve a God who does not understand what we go through, but we serve a God who understands everything we go through because he came to earth as a man. He came to this earth in flesh and blood, and he experienced temptation, real temptation, and he was able to lead the way and show us that we can resist our temptation. But one of the hardest ways to resist temptation is when you feel like you're the only one, when you're alone in your temptation. And I'm here to tell you today that you are not alone in your temptation. You serve a God who understands what you are going through. And there are hundreds of thousands of believers, of people who are going through the very same temptation you are. Speak up, reach out, and ask for help. God will always provide you a way out. And that way out may be through things like confession and seeking help. I love you guys. I hope you have a great day.